They didn't run out of oil. They ran out of patience, discipline, and time. In the early 1970s, Venezuela was richer than Spain, richer than South Korea, richer than most of Asia. Its currency was so strong that people joked a Venezuelan could drop his wallet in Miami and still fly back home to pick it up. Today, the same country struggles to keep its lights on. So the obvious question is not what went wrong, it's something more uncomfortable. How does a country sitting on the largest oil reserves on Earth collapse so completely? And more importantly, could this happen again somewhere else? Let's rewind. Oil was discovered in Venezuela in 1922. At the time, Saudi Arabia hadn't found a single barrel. The UAE was still desert. Foreign oil companies rushed in. They built rigs, pipelines, refineries, entire cities. Venezuela struck a deal that looked smart. 50% of profits for Venezuela, 50% for the companies. By the 1950s, Venezuela was the fourth richest country on the planet. This wasn't poverty with oil money. This was real prosperity. Middle-class growth, modern highways, imported cars, American refrigerators in ordinary homes. And crucially, the system worked because oil was not the entire economy. Agriculture existed, factories existed, skills existed. Oil was the engine, not the whole car. Then came the illusion. In the 1970s, oil prices exploded. Money poured in faster than the state could count it. And that's when the country made its first quiet mistake. It started believing oil money was permanent. Governments changed, but one idea stayed constant. We are rich because we have oil. That sounds reasonable. It's also dangerous, because oil doesn't create wealth by itself. It just concentrates it. Fast forward to 1999. Enter Hugo Chavez, charismatic, defiant, loved by the poor, despised by elites. He didn't invent Venezuela's problems, but he weaponized them politically. Chavez looked at the system and saw inequality, and he wasn't wrong. Oil money existed, but it wasn't reaching everyone. So he promised something powerful. This oil belongs to the people. And people believed him. Chavez took control of the oil industry. Foreign companies were pushed out or forced to give majority ownership to the state. At first, it looked brilliant. Oil prices rose sharply in the early 2000s. Revenue tripled. Poverty fell. Healthcare spending rose. Education expanded. International headlines praised the Venezuelan miracle. But beneath the applause, the math was rotting. Here's the part most people miss. Chavez didn't invest oil money into future production. He spent it on present popularity. Subsidized food, free electricity, fuel cheaper than water. If prices went up, the government absorbed the loss. If production fell, imports filled the gap. And slowly, almost invisibly, domestic industries began to die. Why farm when imported food is cheaper? Why manufacture when oil dollars buy everything? This is called dependency. And dependency feels comfortable until it isn't. Then came the second, far more damaging decision. Chavez fired expertise. Engineers, geologists, oil executives. Tens of thousands were removed from the state oil company for opposing government policy. They were replaced with loyalists, people who believed but didn't know. Oil production is not ideology. It's chemistry, pressure, and maintenance. Refineries started failing, wells degraded, output declined. But oil prices were still high, so nobody panicked. Yet. Then Chavez died, and Nicolas Maduro took over. This is where the illusion shattered. Oil prices collapsed after 2014. Venezuela's entire economy collapsed with them. Because by now, oil was not just the main source of income, it was the only one. No exports, no reserves, no productive capacity. And here's the uncomfortable math. When oil prices fell, government revenue disappeared, but government spending didn't. So the state printed money, a lot of it. Inflation accelerated, then hyperinflation. A loaf of bread became a luxury item. Salaries became meaningless numbers. At one point, it was cheaper to burn cash than buy firewood. That's not metaphor. That actually happened. Meanwhile, sanctions arrived. And yes, sanctions hurt. But sanctions don't destroy strong economies. They expose weak ones. By the time sanctions hit, Venezuela was already hollow. No buffers, no savings, no trust. Even oil production collapsed in an oil country. Which brings us to the final irony. Venezuela didn't collapse because it lacked resources. It collapsed because it misunderstood them. Oil gave Venezuela money, but it took away incentives. Why innovate when money falls from the ground? Why plan long-term when today is paid for? Eventually, the bill arrives. And when it does, there is no backup. Today, Venezuela still has oil, more than anyone. But oil alone can't rebuild institutions. It can't restore trust. It can't reverse lost time. This story isn't about socialism versus capitalism or left versus right. It's about systems, about confusing revenue with resilience, about mistaking redistribution for development, and about how wealth, when unmanaged, becomes a trap. Which leads to the uncomfortable question. If oil could do this to Venezuela, what other forms of easy money might be doing the same, quietly, right now? That's the part nobody wants to talk about, because collapse never announces itself. It looks like success until it doesn't.